Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. Welcome to the program. I'm sorry, I was just reading an email with bad news. And this is for old-timers who have listened to the show for decades. News that one of our longtime listeners and callers, though we haven't heard from her in ages, has died. Carolyn from Monroeville. And anyone who listened to the show when it was on WTAE and WPTT certainly remembers Carolyn's cogent and often tough calls. I'm sorry to hear about this. I know she had been very ill, but so Carolyn from Monroeville, you do establish a bit of a community, a family of sorts when you do a program like this, and the same folks are there day after day after day, week after week, month and years, and I'm sure some of you would want to know. Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw it as the show was beginning. Welcome to Monday, June 10th. And we have had a very busy weekend news-wise, and I have little doubt of what subject we're going to be talking about today. It is an ongoing story with more information coming out as I speak, I'm sure. I'm talking, of course, about the NSA and the secret government meta gathering of. We're learning new words, and I'm sorry if it takes me a while to get it all straight. I've been taking in a lot of information, as I'm sure many of you have as well. I will say whatever is on my mind about it, and then we'll feel free to definitely open it up to you, to calls, emails. As you know, Lynn at pghcitypaper.com, or you can call at 412-316-3381. Give me a chance, though, to just set the table, as it were. Also, a heads up that Vic Walczyk of the ACLU will be joining us on Friday for the entire show. He had been booked earlier, and we were going to talk about the voting rights issues that have certainly come to the fore in Pennsylvania with voter ID laws, and we will touch on that. But obviously, this has a lot to do with our senses of civil liberties and privacy and all those things that Americans hold dear. And so we will definitely be talking to Vic about this, because you can be sure that the ACLU will have a voice in this discussion, in fact, already does. I think fact facts are in order first before we get into opinions. Fact, we have laws in this country that restrict the government, as you know, from eavesdropping on us and wiretapping on us and listening to the actual content of our phone calls. And that has been in place for years and years. And if government wants to do such things, they have to go to court and prove why they must. And, you can argue that, well, courts are rubber stamps and they probably do it anyway. But whatever, there are laws on the books, okay? When it comes to the way we communicate now, the law has in no way caught up. We now, of course, have social media and all of the digital stuff that is being communicated through the air or wherever the heck it is, through wires. I don't understand how anything works anymore. There are virtually no, and understand this is fact, virtually no protections in place to secure the privacy of that information. I'm talking about everything from credit card transactions to smartphones, to internet, to tablets, to Skype, to social media sites, to email, to all the ways that people, in fact, do communicate now. Here's a number. It means absolutely nothing to me, but it shows how much data is roiling around out there in cyberspace now. The world creates 2.5 quintillion bytes of new data every day. I don't even know what the heck a quintillion is. 2.5 quintillion bytes every day. The amount of sheer information, data out there is mind-boggling. IBM estimates that 90% of all the data that is out there in cyberspace, in fact, has just been created in the last 2 years, and that kind of growth will continue and continue and continue. So imagine that 90% of all of this quintillions of data that is out there created in just the last 2 years because of the ubiquity and the ease and the wondrousness for communication of digital technology. Okay, so along with this extraordinarily explosive growth has also come with more technology, and that is access to sift through all that stuff. And when separate streams of information are then pulled together and integrated into large databases, for instance, they matching time and location data from cell phones with credit card purchases or Easy Pass use, intelligence analysts are given a mosaic of someone's life that would never be available from actually listening to their conversations. Just 4 separate pieces of data about the location and time of a cell phone call you make it possible to identify you 95% of the time. And this data is out there. It's available. Okay? Now, I take you to my favorite game show, Jeopardy. Do you remember when IBM's super duper computer they named Watson was brought on Jeopardy to humiliate Ken Jennings and the other most extraordinary human winners of Jeopardy? That was 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Watson, ladies and gentlemen, has gone on from television shows to the NSA and to the CIA. Both of them have been testing Watson in the last 2 years. And again, this is information that we did not have, but Watson is emblematic of the kind of computer and technology that makes this huge data gathering that we now know the NSA does possible. So while Watson was sort of fun on Jeopardy, you might not like the ability of Watson to sift through all this stuff now, given the sense that your privacy is being, well, violated. I've seen a few quotes that I just immediately agree with. Here's one. You can have the internet and you can have privacy, but you can't have both. And here's the uncomfortable truth that I'm not hearing enough of in all the conversation I'm hearing about this. And I've said this many times before on this program. Once something is possible, once something is doable, once a tool becomes available, it will be used. It's the classic Pandora's box. There's no putting it back in. To think for a moment that a computer capable of what Watson is capable of existing, of course, governments will want it working for them. So will big business. All those who have the desire to get information, who also want to be sure that they're not Johnny-come-latelys to the information, are going to be scrambling to, well, get it. It's not so surprising that in Palm Springs this weekend, the heads of the two most powerful nations on earth, the United States and China, were spending a lot of time talking exactly about this. Cyber attacks. This is where governments now live. This is the power. To think that they are not going to use this power is, to me, absurd. My sense is exactly that. You can have the internet or you can have privacy, but it seems clear to me for the last 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 years you can't have both. Now, the Wall Street Journal points something out that is fascinating to me, and I suspect they are right in this. They say the paradox of this kind of metadata mining is that the more information a government collects, the less of an intrusion it is. Well, let me wing that by you again, because that doesn't seem to make any sense. They are saying that the more information the government collects, the less of an intrusion it is. Here's why. We're talking about data, again, what was that, gazillion billions, trillions, and, numbers we can't even, we're talking about so much that that they can only be understood by using algorithms. And algorithms search, people can't do it, search through all that data. Algorithms search for patterns, trends, associations, networks. It's what Watson did to win Jeopardy. That's what the computers do. And in that sense, they are not violating any individual privacy. An individual amounts to like nothing in that sea of information. So we're talking about these huge, huge attempts to identify anything. Well, whoever figures out these algorithms then knows how to zero in on one thing. Now, we know that what they're looking for is potential trouble, right? Okay. So the alternative to doing these huge data gathering sweeps would be then to drop back to the lower tech methods that we have used before, all hell broke loose in this digital era. And that would be wiretapping, eavesdropping, searches, tracking, all that kind of stuff. And doing that actually probably ends up invading individuals' privacy even more than these kinds of statistical probabilities, which is what Watson is grabbing. Okay, here's another thought I have. A lot of the caterwauling going on about this is coming from horrified Americans. But don't we hear horrified Americans caterwauling after, Boston and after Benghazi and after any failure of national security? And again, I will say, what is it we want? When the president says, we got to have a national conversation about this, he is right. Because the American people want to be kept safe from absolutely anything, or they consider it a failure of their government. And yet, on the other hand, they don't want the government doing this metadata gathering, which is the only way they're going to be able to stop something before it occurs, right? I'm trying to be rational here. It's all I'm trying to be. So I'm looking through this and trying to figure out, what do we do now? There is it's really fascinating, but I got to tell you guys, there's no going back. Welcome to a brave new world. Hello? Where'd you think we were heading? Okay, so let's say we say to the American government, you can't do this. It's illegal. Stop it. Okay, you think the Chinese government's going to stop it? You think, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Is liberty compatible with the digital age? Is privacy, is privacy? I don't think it is. And I think privacy as a concept is going to be a foreign concept in 2-3 generations. That's my bet, and I would have made that bet a few years ago. Okay, to Edward Snowden, the leaker. I see him here on the front page of the Post-Gazette saying, "I'm not going to hide. Allowing the U.S. government to intimidate its people with threats of retaliation for revealing wrongdoing is contrary to the public interest." Well, these are high-minded words from Mr. Snowden, but here's my problem. What wrongdoing? There is nothing that has come out, including what Snowden has released, that suggests that our government broke any law. The American people clamored for the Patriot Act. Did they not? Everything that we're now reading about and being appalled by is right there in the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was just re-upped less than a year ago. Did you pay any attention to that? The legal basis behind the National Security Agency's claim that it can secretly collect every American's telephone record stems from if you look at, this goes back to a Supreme Court case in 1976, for God's sakes. There is NSA surveillance as of now. This is a constitutional law professor saying, and I haven't heard anyone say otherwise. As of now, there is absolutely no doubt that these programs, which we have been told about by Mr. Snowden, are constitutional. So I'm bemused. I'm bemused by this. The White House has said the Senate knew about. They did know. Now everybody's running for cover because people are appalled. I have to tell you, I think there's a lot of troubling stuff in the information that has come out. One of the things I'm most troubled about is learning the extent of the privatization of our national security. That, to me, and I have been a big opponent of the privatization of our military over the years, all those private contractors and mercenaries that we employ now because we don't have enough volunteers in our volunteer military to do the job. And so, literally tens of thousands of people who used to be government employees working for the CIA, working for the NSA, working for the military, now are private, working for these big firms like Booz Allen, that Mr. Snowden worked for, who contract out the people that the government used to employ. Now they get contracted out by a private entity at a much higher cost than when they were government employees. So we privatize all this stuff, important work, and then more money gets made by contractors. This is all part of the demonization of government brought to you by the Republican Party, who can't privatize enough stuff. And so you end up actually paying more and maybe getting less quality. One of the things most surprising to me about Edward Snowden is that he has incredible access to all this stuff. He didn't even graduate from high school. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this protecting our country. People want it both ways.
Right.
They want the freedom, but yet they want to be protected. Well, it don't work that way.
No, I don't think it does either.
That's the same way with the guns. They want the guns, but yet they want to ban certain you can either do one or the other, you know?
Well, it's a very complicated thing, but I got to tell you that
Yes.
a lot of the squawking and screaming going on seems to me to be crazy in that it's not acknowledging this brave new world we live in. There's no going back. Any government, all governments will be using
the genie's out of the bottle.
You bet it is, and long gone. Now, what are we going to do? I don't know. That is a conversation we have to have.
Another thing I want to bring up is I'm getting so tired of television on TV and saying less than 1% of people fight our wars. And the families of today, they're not directly, involved like a husband or a wife or a child. Well, let me tell you, during Vietnam, during World War II, these people that maybe don't have it directly involved now, they had relatives, they had sons, they had daughters, they had husbands, wives, whatever. I get tired of that rubbing it in your nose that you're not participating in it. For one thing, don't fight stupid-ass wars to begin with, and then you wouldn't have that problem.
Well said.
Okay, we'll see you.
Have a nice day. Okay, so Charles Blow in the New York Times says this, and I think he's all over the place here. He says, what can be done eventually will be done. It's what I've been saying forever, yes. For good or ill, because information is power, and human beings bend toward power, and certainly governments do, the way that plants bend toward the sun. The threat of terrorism has become the broad rationale for the invasion of our privacy. And we go back to that great quote. Was it Madison who said it? And I'm just going to paraphrase because I'm not going to get it right. But that he who desires security over liberty deserves neither? Is that what it is? Didn't seem quite right. But here again, as the caller said, we want it all. We want to be kept safe, and then we howl about the way our government goes about keeping us safe. There was a great quote. My sister reminded me of it yesterday that we both had seen in some article we'd read, and it was by one of our national security people. And he said, to fight these terrorist attacks, we are asking our government to essentially look for a needle in a haystack. Of all the billions of people in the world, who wants to do us harm and who is actively moving toward doing us harm? Now, how do you find that out? He says it's like looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack. And he said, but in order to do that, you need a haystack. That's the data collection. You need something to sift through. So, the president says there's trade-offs. He thinks, and he certainly knows what the program's about, that the amount of invasion of American citizens' privacy here is negligible and worth it as a trade-off for being able to stop terrorist attacks before they happen. And we have been told by a number of people that more than one attack has been thwarted by this data mining. Charles Blow says, in the wake of the increasing digitizing of our lives, much of it with our consent, and with the overactive national security hysteria that has followed 9/11, the Patriot Act being an example of that, what we're now talking about seems inevitable, does it not? But then he goes on to end up on the other side by saying, even if you trust the current government, what happens when the current government is replaced by a government you don't trust? A government and a president that you just really don't agree with. Imagine what damage the power to indiscriminately collect endless amounts of private data on innocent citizens could do in the hands of people of ill will. We are not strangers to that kind of abuse in world history. So he ends his piece by saying this is one of those rare moments where the left and the right can meet, because this government overreach is a threat to liberty. Okay. There you go. But, again, I say, actually, David wrote it in an email to me. Welcome to the 21st century. Welcome. I've been tooting this horn for well over a decade. Welcome. And if you think the United States government is going to hamstring itself when other governments, including China, are actually cyber attacking corporations, our own government computers, this is where it all happens now. From the drones to this, welcome to the 21st century. So I think we really do need a conversation, but we need it to be rational and not emotional, because this is a brave new world. Caller, go ahead. Caller? Hello? All right. I got to take a break, guys. Be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. This week, great deals on tickets to the Pittsburgh Irish and Classical Theater. Supplies are limited. bergbargains.com. Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
Well, the Urban Gardener told you about it, right? And I know a lot of you already have been there. But I've got to underscore what a great resource this is right in the city, 1901 Brighton Road. Check out their website. They're so smart about social media. And I get emails from them that are so helpful to a piddling little gardener like myself. Their website, is urbangardenerpgh.com. Okay? Urban Gardener. Very easily gotten to from any place in the circumference that most of us live within. They have everything you could ever want for your garden, and mostly what they have is good advice. They take the time to talk to you, to tell you about the plants. They have garden art and accessories and all that stuff. And they specialize in urban gardens, which often are smaller and which often have a lot of shade issues, right? So, this is the place. I have loved this place for years and years and years. and I love being able to introduce it to you. The Urban Gardener, urbangardenerpgh.com. And once you go there and you get some wonderful stuff, you tell them, I heard about this on Lynn Cullen. Just drop my name. You get a discount. Can't beat that, right? Urban Gardener.
Welcome to Move Time Radio, presented by the Arthritis Foundation. And we're smack dab in the middle of our dance-a-thon to fight arthritis pain. Me, I've been grooving for 10 hours straight, baby, but I'm a boogie machine. See, movement is just one of the ways to help fight osteoarthritis pain. Another is weight loss. You get rid of just 1 pound. That's 4 pounds of pressure off each knee. For more information on managing pain, visit fightarthritispain.org. Then meet me on the dance floor. This message brought to you by the Arthritis Foundation and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okie doke. I am really looking forward to having Vic Walchuk on Friday because, he will be giving you a different spin than I am giving you right now. But I'll be very curious about how he responds to my contention.
Hey, Lynn, this is Mike from D.C.
Hi, Mike.
A piece of this that I think we're missing
Yes?
is that face recognition software. Right now, if you have a credit card, you kind of say to the credit card company, here's my information. And you implicitly or may not realize that that business has that information. But with the face recognition software, just walking down the street becomes public data.
There's no stopping it. Would you agree
Right.
with me? No stopping.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. And after 9/11, and we got all of those cameras to check your speed limit and to check red lights.
And you're carrying your
really
but you're carrying your cell phone, which also is giving you away every 2 seconds, right? Every
But I
piece
could
of
give you my cell phone, and I could say, oh, Lynn Cullen has my cell phone. But these pictures of where I am, just walking down the street, pictures from every angle, I mean, is really invasive. I don't have to have a cell phone.
No, and this is total. Oh, look, this technology has already totally changed law enforcement. The police now employ all kinds of people who are essentially these technological forensic detectives who know how to dig and sift through all this information. You can tell that the business sector, big business, as well as big brother government, that they have unbelievable amounts of information on us. You can tell by the kind of ads that pop up on your... They're constantly trolling.
That? Right.
Well, they're trolling through. They see what sites I visit. They see what, I maybe purchase online. All of this data is out there. Why is there any presumption of privacy with anybody
And a
anymore?
few weeks ago, I mentioned the gun people, and that anybody who thinks they have a gun without the government knowing it is crazy. And someone wrote back saying, how could the government and what would they do? If you think that face recognition software and FBI agents aren't outside of every gun show, you're crazy.
Yeah.
If they can find out that you bought pantyhose off of Amazon on the 3rd of June, they can find out that someone bought a gun at a trade show in Pittsburgh.
That's right. And somebody just sent me, Henry just sent me an excerpt from a security technologist who works for CNN, and here's what he says. The Internet is a surveillance state. That's it. We just don't think of it that way. But anyone who is desirous of finding out who we are, that would be somebody who wants to sell us something, or a government looking for, bad guys. The Internet is a surveillance state, and all of us are being watched all the time. And the data that is being retrieved is being stored in perpetuity. perpetuity. This is what a surveillance state looks like, and it's efficient beyond the wildest dreams of George Orwell. It's already here. It will only get more so.
And
Is
the
there
newer
any
generations don't really care.
No, but they won't, because if you're a child growing up in this digital age, well, you can see by what young people share on, Facebook or on whatever. And older folks say, "My God, well, that's not something that should be public. There is no expectation of privacy. And what I don't get about all the squawking and screaming and the politicizing going on about this is, what the hell are we... Again, you can't put the genie back in. You cannot. It's out and only getting more so at a pace we can't even begin to imagine.
I'm watching The Wire because you're recommending it, and I'm on season 3. In just those 3 years, from like 2003 to 2005, the technology has, has changed so much on the show.
That's right.
Can you imagine what it really has changed life in real?
Now, because that show was being made in 2003, 2004, 2005, I think. So that's ancient now.
Right.
Isn't that an amazing show? Do you love it? No?
Did we lose him?
We lost him. Oh, I thought, sorry. Well, if he's on season 3, I guess he must think so. Yeah, because The Wire is about a wiretap. I mean, that's what it is, and that's what the cops had available to them. They have a hell of a lot more now, and they ain't giving it up. This is this sort of wonderful moment where Americans can maybe wake up. Hello? Wake up. Do you think everyone's saying, "Oh, I thought Obama'd be different"? And are you kidding? He's the president of the United States in the year 2013. Whoever the president is in 2017 or 2020, I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, libertarian. The libertarians, give it up, guys. Rand Paul might be apoplectic right now, but hey, Rand, guess what? Welcome to the 21st century. Welcome to what technology has let loose. And it's way bigger than anybody's privacy. If you want to be private, then you can, I guess, don't have any of these gizmos. You can sort of live off the grid, and you can pay for things in cash. I mean, technically, I guess you sort of almost could do it, but not really. Not really. It's over. It's over. Please, somebody, tell me that I disagree with something I'm saying here, because to me, I'm not saying this is good or this is bad or this is outrageous. This is. It is what is. And no one who is the president of these United States in these times is going to turn his or her back on this kind of ability to gather information, especially when they'll be held responsible if something bad happens because they missed a piece of information. This is a classic. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's classic. You want total security, then you're going to live in a total surveillance state. You want to live with risk and not be scared out of your wits that you're going to be blown out of the air in every plane you get into, or somebody's going to put a bomb off near you. If we want to suck it up and be tough like that, well then maybe we can say to our government, look, no, I'm sorry, you can't do this. But you just can't have it both ways. And the other reality is that when this kind of tool is available, and the tool keeps getting more and more unbelievable every day, the change is so exponential. Can you possibly imagine that those in power anywhere in the world, from monarchies to dictatorships to democracies, do you mean to tell me they are not going to want the latest tools? Well, of course they will. Because if we don't use them, we can be assured that another country will, and they will then be used against us. This is a whole new game. It bears next to no resemblance to everything we knew about government and security and all of that stuff. Welcome to it. Sci-fi guys in Hollywood have been trying to alert us to these kinds of realities for years. It's here. It's over. It's done. Welcome to 2013. And it's only going to get more so. That's my take. If you got another one, please give us a call, but I'm taking a break.
More with Lynn Cullen live after this.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for information on the Three Rivers Arts Festival, plus Tracy Morgan, Passion Pit, Drowning Pool, Shaka Khan, and news of the weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All right, we're back, and again, I've said my piece. If anybody wants to say theirs, come on in. But I do have to make note of the big win by Billy Porter, Pittsburgher, at the Tonys last night. I was so thrilled for him. He and I go back a long time, and I first saw Billy Porter when he was a little kid. That's how old I am, jeez. And I've told the story, but I happened, to be a television reporter going over to Rogers Middle School for the Performing Arts, and I was in a classroom, and he was in that classroom, and he was singing or dancing or something. I don't know what he was doing, but all I know is I said to the principal who was taking me around, "Who is that kid?" So, 30 years later, that kid won. And just a few years ago, he and I shared a stage at City Theater. And I'll be damned if I can remember the play. It's horrible. And we spent a lot of time backstage before we went on talking about Lawrence Gaines, who was my wondrous producer, who died way too soon. But Lawrence's family and Billy's family knew each other very well. And they were close. And frankly, Lawrence and Billy were both extraordinarily talented black gay men, and in a time when that wasn't cool. And it had a great impact on both of their lives, without a doubt. So I wish Lawrence had lived to see it. He would have been thrilled. Anyway, so that was really great news. Let's see, what else do I have? By the way, my sister will not be in tomorrow, so we'll have lots more time to talk about all of this stuff. You know, I often talk about the revolving door in Washington. It drives me crazy that Dick Cheney is the greatest exemplar of this. A guy who was the Secretary of Defense for Bush 1, who then uses that to become the CEO of Halliburton, which does most of its work with government contracts, especially from the Pentagon. So the Secretary of Defense, Dick Cheney, becomes the CEO of Halliburton, Dick Cheney, and then becomes the Vice President, Dick Cheney, back and forth and back and forth. And if you think that doesn't have a lot to do with the increasing privatization, then reading the New York Times today, I see that look who is one of the chief mucky mucks at Booz Allen, the big contractor that this Snowden worked for. Why, it's John McConnell. And guess what John McConnell was not too long ago? John McConnell was the Director of National Intelligence. And he leaves that position and immediately gets a job as the high mucky muck at a contractor that just a few weeks before he was writing checks to. Let's look at our current Chief Intelligence Officer. That's Mr. Clapper. Mr. Clapper, guess what? Guess where he used to work? Booz Allen. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is really no difference now between these huge corporate entities that make all of their money from tax dollars and our government. It's a totally incestuous revolving door, and it's awfully lucrative for the guys that are in that revolving door. So our national security has been consistently privatized. And this is something, of all the things that are now being made public, this is the thing that I really think is the most important. Think of all the people who have like really high level clearances, like this Snowden did. Didn't you sort of think that, well, back in the day, those people would be working for the government? But now, of course, they're working for Booz Allen, which farms them out to the government for probably 2 to 3 times what the government used to pay for them when it hired them directly. That's the thing that scandalizes me. Now, whether or not Mr. Snowden turns out to be a whistleblower or just a flat-out criminal who has, in fact, harmed our national security, I will leave that to you. But there is something about much of what he has said which has a tone that I find off-putting. I'm just telling you right now, my gut reaction is not to think of Mr. Snowden as a hero, but instead as a self-righteous person with, I guess, he's just dying to be a martyr. He, again, we talked about this before. What is a whistleblower? A A whistleblower is somebody who blows the whistle on government criminal activity, on something that we, the people, did not authorize. Guess what? We, the people, authorized what he's told us about. There has been no crime committed. And that takes whistleblower status away from him and makes him just a leaker who violated his oath and pledge, and who probably will be going to jail, which he seems to sort of want. The odd thing about him outing himself, too, is interesting to me, as if he couldn't wait to get his fame started. I don't know. I'm not inclined to think of him as a whistleblower. Almost every word out of him, it has a grandiosity to it that is off-putting to me. I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of keeping us safe, did you see this little item? Saw this over the weekend. So, I mean, this kind of thing happens. It has to do with a suicide bomber. It has to do with suicide bomber in Afghanistan. I know we don't pay attention to those kinds of things. But this suicide bomber was targeting a real high up in Afghanistan's government. In fact, he was trying to kill their chief spy chief, the head of their national security apparatus, a guy named Asadullah Khalid. And because of that, Mr. Khalid obviously had the greatest security anybody in Afghanistan has, because he controls all the security there. And the bomber somehow was able to get Khalid to agree to meet him, saying he had really important information that he had to give him in person. All right, so he's the guy who turns out to be a suicide bomber is told to come to the capital, Kabul, and to a safe house, to an armored room in the basement, where he was told to undress, which he did, and he was looked at, and he was not wearing any, and so he was brought upstairs to the chief spy, Mr. Khalid. And then he blew up. Mr. Khalid was injured, not killed. He has been in Walter Reed for weeks and weeks now. Okay, well, if he stripped and he didn't have the bomb, where was the bomb? Yes, the bomb was inside him. And they believe that these rectal bombs were made by the same guy who did the underwear bomb, which didn't work so well. But this guy is constantly trying. And since we now know they're willing to put bombs up their behinds and anything else to get by, and they're saying that if somebody had one of these bombs, they'd get through TSA security. So I was thinking, okay, so in our desire to be constantly protected and to have security, so now that we know, once we knew bombers could have shoes that would explode, we had to take our shoes off. So now that we know, well, you can see where I'm going. So now that we know there are rectal bombs, well, I ask you, are we all going to have a proctology exam before we can get on board? This is, again, this desire for constant security begets, you talk about invasion of privacy. We got to make some choices. We got to make some choices. Okay. Well, with so little time, I don't know that I want to start up another subject matter. So I think I'll bid thee adieu, and we'll look forward to talking more tomorrow when we'll have even more information. And Wednesday, Potter, Thursday, Sokolowski, and Friday, Vic Volchek. And sounds like a pretty interesting week to me. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.